Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Three Pillars podcast with your host, Chriselda.blog. Today, we'll be speaking on the second pillar of writing. Hi, Lorraine. Welcome to the Three Pillars. I'm so glad to have you on today. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me here today.
Lorraine, could you introduce yourself to our listeners, please?
Sure. My name's Lorraine Reguly. I currently run Wording Well. It's a word-based business. I am a certified high school math and English teacher, and I'm using my English skills now to edit other people's works and to help them become authors because I'm also a self-published author myself. And yes, I've had a rocky life, and we'll talk about the roller coaster ride of my life shortly. But that's basically me, what I'm doing right now. So,
But your story is very inspirational. Everything that I read about you, I was completely in awe at all that you've experienced and all that you've been through, and yet you're there, this lovely, positive, vibrant personality. Could you tell us about a hard time in your life and how you managed to get out of it, how you managed to succeed from it?
sure. Basically, my life took a turn. This is when the roller coaster ride all started, was when I was 14 years old, and I was a virgin, teenage virgin, and I was raped. Back then, this happened during the mid 1980s. I'm in my 40s now, so this was quite a while ago. But it really changed the trajectory of my life because that event completely devastated me. I mean, as I'm sure you could imagine, I mean, any child who goes through something without any kind of support afterwards is going to have a tough time. And that's what happened to me. I mean, I didn't tell anybody what happened to me for years, and I didn't feel as though I could tell anybody at the time. And so this, society at that point, this was in, pre-internet. This was like before the internet was, around. And this was before even the kids' help phone line was around. I was left to basically deal with everything myself. And I couldn't. I didn't have the tools, I didn't have the knowledge, and I didn't have the coping skills to do that. So I basically tried to deal with it myself by numbing the pain, eating, sleeping, turning to drugs, drinking. Obviously, these are not healthy options, but that's the only thing I knew at the time. And it was really, really tough because having being raped completely changed my belief system about love and sex and what the two meant. For so many years, I grew up believing that sexual intercourse was the ultimate expression of love between two people. And then when I was raped, that wasn't my experience. So it was really difficult to try and sort out, my beliefs around love and sex after that happened to me. It took me years and years and years to sort of pull myself out of that event. And that's why I say the roller coaster ride of my life began, because I fell into a deep depression. I even tried committing suicide when I was 15, and I started looking for love in all the wrong places, becoming promiscuous, thinking if I gave guys sex, they would love me. And, obviously that was not true. And so I, I just ended up putting myself in situations that were not healthy. And it took me, well, okay, at 16, I ended up pregnant and I had an abortion. At 17, I found out I was pregnant again. And this time I decided to keep my baby. So at 18, I became a single mom and decided, I better go back to school and get myself educated because I wanted to give my son the best life possible. So that was sort of the start of one of the ups of the roller coaster rides. And I did go back to school, and I went to university for 5 years. First, I finished my high schooling. Then I went to university for 5 years and became a high school math and English teacher, and obtained a really good paying job as an English and math teacher. So things were going along quite well. But when I was finishing my high schooling, I was actually in a program for single moms. And my main teacher had been previously employed as a counselor. That was her first profession. She switched careers later in life. So she had one day taken me aside and asked me what had happened to me. And I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" And she said, "Well, judging from our conversations, I can tell that you've suffered some kind of an abuse, and I don't think you've dealt with it properly." And I said, "Wow." I said, that's really insightful, because you're right. I was raped when I was 14. And she suggested that I get into counseling. And so I did. I ended up seeing my doctor and got a referral and started seeing a counselor who really made a huge difference in my life. That was one of the positive things about my roller coaster ride. She and I worked through the books called The Courage to Heal, and I highly recommend those books for anybody. You can buy them at any bookstore. It's basically sort of I don't want to use the word textbook, but it's kind of like, it's two books that go together, one that you read, and then there's a workbook that accompanies it. And in the main book, they have a lot of different stories about different people who have undergone various forms of, they share their various experiences with, abuse, sexual abuse, traumatic abuse, rape, everything. And in the workbook, the accompanying questions sort of relate to what you've just read, and you are asked questions that are about, your own feelings, and you kind of relate it to your own experiences and the feelings that you felt, the things that you thought, and so on. And so each week at my counseling session, we would talk about, the chapter that I had just worked on it, at home the past week. And through counseling and through these different exercises, I really learned a lot about myself and about how I handled things and about my emotional triggers and different things like that. So it was really helpful. And then at one point through the counseling, we talked about laying charges against my rapist. And I said I had never done that. So she asked me if I still wanted to pursue that. And even though it had been almost a decade had gone by, not quite at that point, I think it was probably about 8 or 9 years, the statute of limitations hadn't run out. So I was still able to charge him, and I did. And we ended up going to court. We had a trial. My rapist chose to be tried by judge and jury. And so that was a whole another, emotional roller coaster for me as well. And in the end, it turned out that the lady who had introduced me to my rapist, even though she was my friend, she sided with him. So I felt completely betrayed by that. And because she sided with him and got up on the stand in court and lied, they ended up finding him not guilty, which was not the outcome that I had hoped for. And that whole outcome really was unfair, and it sort of messed with my mind all over again. I did find some comfort in the fact that I had the strength and the courage to actually bring my rapist to justice, to do everything I can by charging him and going to court multiple times and watching him face the reality that, yes, he might actually be going to jail for what he did to me. So I did find some comfort in that. Now, after I finished university and everything and got started teaching, I actually continued with counseling throughout the years after that. And counseling really, really helped sort of pull me out of, I wouldn't say it helped me pull me out of my depression, but it helped me learn different coping strategies. And it taught me a lot about myself and how to objectively look at a situation, sort of from the outside, to analyze it and look at what was going on and why I was feeling the way I was feeling, what triggered me to feel that way and things like that. So that really helped. Now, it wasn't until years later, probably, well, after I hit 40, I started blogging online, and that's when I started sort of putting myself out there as a writer. I wanted to become known as an author and a writer. And so there's a lot that happened, from those 2 points, but you had asked me, about how I pulled myself out of it. And so one of the things was the coping strategies I used in counseling, the different things that I learned. But another thing was the strategy of using positive affirmations, which I didn't learn until after I started blogging online and opening my business and became an author the first time. And positive affirmations really changed my life. Like, I actually now refer to positive affirmations as my secret to happiness, because that's how much I love them. And they just have such a powerful effect on my life that I just can't praise them enough, for what they are and what they do. And I wanted to talk a little bit about those because I had never heard of positive affirmations like all my life. And then all of a sudden one day, through just doing, I don't know, research for a blog post or something online, I came across these. And I was like, well, what are they and how do they work? And so I ended up learning all about them. And in my second book, I actually wrote a whole chapter on positive affirmations. I talk about what they are, how they work, how to use them, a lot of samples of affirmations. And I actually made this whole chapter free on my website to anyone out there. So I basically just took my chapter and just rewrote it, like copied and pasted and formatted as a blog post for my website. So positive affirmations, essentially, what they are positive statements that you tell yourself on a daily basis. Usually they work best if you do it like when you first wake up in the morning. And they're statements that are not necessarily true, but they're statements that you tell yourself every single day. And how they work is that they alter your current beliefs, which usually are, negative or maybe false or maybe limiting. So they alter your current beliefs by sinking into your subconscious. And even though the statements might not initially be true or you might not believe them, the constant repetition of them makes your subconscious fight to make the affirmations become a reality. Now, it's sort of a strange phenomenon, but it actually works. And so positive affirmations are super powerful. The reason why I like them so much is because they make you feel good. They help you change your belief system. They help you change your thoughts. Any kind of negative self-talk that you find yourself having, throughout the day, that usually disappears and it's replaced with your new positive beliefs. So, for example, if you're a type of person who says, oh no, that's too hard, and I'm too ugly and I can't do that, you would end up telling yourself, I can achieve anything I want with ease. I am a beautiful person. I can do anything I want. So you basically kind of take the opposite of your negative self-talk sentences and you turn it into the positive of it, and you base your affirmations on that, as well as you can add different affirmations for different areas of your life where you want to succeed. So for me, one of my dreams was becoming an author. And so when I first heard about these affirmations, I would tell myself, I am a self-published, or I am an author. And even though I wasn't at the time, I would tell myself, I am an author. And over time, it started sinking, into my subconscious, and I started taking the steps to become an author. And so positive affirmations not only make you feel good and, have the confidence to believe in yourself, but they also give you the motivation and, the desire to want to be better, to want to be a better person, to want to achieve your dreams, to open new opportunities in your life and actually like go chase them. There's so many that you can create. And as I'm saying some of these, I'm actually looking at my blog post that I wrote, that this is the whole free chapter on my site. It's called How to Use Positive Affirmations to Improve Your Life. And there's everything that you need to know. There's samples, there's a fill in the blank worksheet, everything. Like it's completely free to everybody. And I just wanted to let people know, like, they're so powerful. And the reason I'm so passionate about these is because I thought they were like hidden from me, like it was a secret or something, that all this information was kept secret from me, even though it wasn't. That's how I felt. And so I want to make sure that everybody in this world knows about them and uses them, like, so they can change their life and feel great about themselves and start achieving their dreams. So it's on wordingwell.com. The title is How to Use Positive Affirmations to Improve Your Life.
Wow. Your story, first of all, was super amazing, and then the advice that you just gave us is amazing. I'm gonna go have a look after we finish recording today. Tell me something, Lorraine. From all this that happened in your life, you went through all these hardships and things. At which point were you actually drawn to writing? And why did you choose writing? Why didn't you go into other avenues like, singing or there's so many, but why writing? What was it in writing that drew you in? Did you find a sort of a peace or your calm there, or the way that you could express yourself better? That's why you were drawn to it?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. Singing, I'm a terrible singer. Writing,
Okay.
I'm an excellent writer. I have loved writing ever since I was a young child. I've always loved reading. I could never read enough. And reading and writing to me went hand in hand. So my mother was actually an elementary school teacher. She taught grades 1 and 2. And I was her firstborn child. And when she had me, she quit her job to stay at home. So I was the one who soaked up all of her knowledge about words, about reading, about writing, about everything. So words to me have been like ingrained. It's like a part of, it's like, if I were to have my left arm cut off and I'd be missing, that limb for the rest of my life, that would be like, that's how much words are a part of me. If I were not able to read or write, it would be like I was missing a body part. That's how much I love words. So I always did a lot of reading and I always did a lot of writing. I've written short stories, I've written poetry. Poetry, especially, really helps me to sort out the emotions that I'm feeling. And writing in general, I just find very therapeutic. So, a lot of people express their creativity in different ways. Some people, like you say, become singers. Well, I wanted to become a writer and I wanted to become a famous writer. It wasn't enough just for me to write. Like I wanted other people to hear what I had to say. And writing was something that I always wanted to pursue. And it wasn't until a few different events in my life happened that caused me to sort of pursue that dream. My son had we had some issues, and there's like so much more to my story that I haven't even talked to you about, because I ended up falling into prostitution as a way of not as a way of dealing with my rape, but after, like I had told you that, I had become promiscuous and things like that. Well, one day I got involved with prostitution because I figured, well, I had an opportunity to make some money. And I thought, oh, well, I'm giving it away for free. I might as well get paid for it. And so I found that it was a really easy way to make money, even though it wasn't a respectable way to make money. And
Mhm.
so I ended up doing that for many years off and on. And my son had found out about it. And when he was 19, he decided to move out and basically not have anything to do with me anymore until I cleaned up my act. And during that time, that's when I basically hit my rock bottom because I ended up smoking drugs, crack cocaine, for 10 months and became really addicted to that and wasted all my money on that drug. And it was just awful, horrible period of my life. But I realized that if I wanted my son to be back in my life, I had to start making some healthier changes. And I had to get out of the situation that I was in. So I ended up getting off the streets and getting off the drugs and making healthier changes so that I could eventually have my son back in my life. And ironically, once I started making these healthier changes, I actually ended up in the hospital with a burst appendix, literally dying. And I had to have emergency surgery to save my life, which was a real eye-opening point for me because I had been faced with, suicidal thoughts my whole life. And at that point, I realized I didn't want to die, even though I was literally dying. I didn't want to die. I wanted to live. And I especially didn't want to die without saying goodbye to my son or without achieving some of my goals. So that whole incident really made me realize, okay, it's time to stop talking about pursuing this writing dream of mine and actually start pursuing it. And so that's what I did. I ended up reconnecting with my son, which was amazing, and explained to him that I was leading a different life at that point. And so we reconnected. He forgave me for so many things and supported me from that point forward. And we repaired our relationship. He's really proud of me now again. And so it's been a wonderful journey. So getting into the writing career began with me. I actually wrote a book in university, and I was encouraged by my professor to get it published. So after my son and I reconnected, I ended up buying this book called The Writer's Market. And in this book, it lists all of the publishers in the world and the types of books that they publish. So, and they come out with a new edition every year. And I'd actually purchased a couple of editions previously, one I think in 1997 and one in 2002. So there was a couple of points that I, sort of tried, took some steps in the past to pursue my writing career, but never actually did anything with it aside from, starting the research. So in 2013, that was when I got serious about it. And when I bought a copy of the book that time, I learned that like there was new information in the book, and they said that authors are now expected to promote their works on social media, and they're supposed to have a website and blog about different things and promote their books that way. And none of the previous editions had this information that none of the previous editions I bought. So I was looking into blogging and what it was, and I ended up buying a brand new laptop computer and watched a whole bunch of blogging tutorials. And 4 days later, I started a free website and I just started blogging. And from that point, things just snowballed. I started learning about blogging and how to be a better blogger. I started writing articles for other people's websites. And I even got offered to be paid as a freelance writer for one of the websites that I wrote for. And so I suddenly became a freelance writer who was getting paid to write, which I thought was really cool. I was like, oh my God, people want to pay me to do something I love. And my writing career just sort of took off from there because throughout the whole process, I learned about self-publishing. I learned that it was an actual thing that anybody could put a book up on Amazon and sell it. And so I had taken some of the short stories that I had written and I put them together in a book and went through the steps of the self-publishing process and put that book together, got a cover made for it, put it up on Amazon, and boom, I was an author. Just like
Yay.
that. Just like that.
Yeah. Was that your first book then?
That was my first book.
And what's it called?
And it's called Risky Issues.
Okay.
Because the stories that I included in Risky Issues were stories about identity, drugs, abuse, death, and friendship.
Wow.
And I figured, like some of these issues, they're issues that every teen faces. And I had written these basically when I was a teenager. So these short stories, I put them all together into this book and became an author. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. So after saying, especially, when I said like those positive affirmations, I am an author. Well, after I became an author and I said that, I was just like, wow, like I really am an author now. So at
Mhm.
that point, I was able to adjust my affirmations and make even better ones for myself. And by that point, too, I was running my business. So that's when I created the one about a successful businesswoman lives inside me. And today, that woman's running my business. So that's how, the evolution of my writing career and my affirmations sort of went hand in hand. And after I published that first book, one of my friends, in fact, the man who introduced you and I, Max Ivy,
Mhm.
he wanted me to help him with his first book. And I say first book because he now has 3 and is working on his 4th. So I helped Max, when he was ready to publish that book. And I had, in the meantime, also published my second book, which is called From Nope to Hope. And that's where, this whole chapter about positive affirmations come in. From Nope to Hope is all about how I overcame my suicidal thoughts and how you can too. So it basically shares different strategies and techniques that I learned, over the years through counseling, and then some of them on my own afterwards, like positive affirmations, using meditation, visualization, and the law of attraction to, to be more successful. A lot of different strategies and techniques are shared in From Nope to Hope. I also, at the end of each chapter, included a little section for people to answer questions and think about what they had learned in that chapter. I call them thought and action exercises. And so I actually included, it's like got a built in workbook because of that. So there's different, at the end of each chapter, there's things that the reader can do in order to take steps immediately to start changing their lives and reaching their dreams, taking those
Mhm.
steps to do that. So it's more than just, a book about overcoming depression or suicidal thoughts. It's actually a self-help book that anybody could use to improve their life.
I wanted to ask you something on this book, Nope to Hope. Now, when you were writing it, I mean, you were writing about your emotions, everything you've been through. Did it bring you back to those certain moments where were you depressed and things like that? How did you work through it?
Oh, it absolutely did. I actually thought about not even writing the book. I thought about just abandoning the whole project because it did. It brought me back to all these horrible times in my life that I faced. And it was, I basically ended up reliving all of these different emotions, all of these negative emotions again. And I had been talking a lot on Facebook, posting that, I'm writing this book, I'm doing this, and blah, blah, blah. And I, at one point, was so completely upset and everything that I went on Facebook and I posted, I'm not doing this. I'm giving up. I am abandoning this project. I am so sorry, but I just cannot handle dealing with these things over and over and over again. I thought I was done dealing with them. I dealt with them before. I thought I was done. And my friends and my followers came onto that post and said, Lorraine, think about why you're doing this, why you started this book in the first place. And then I thought, you're right. Why did I start? I started this book to help people. And who better than to help people than somebody who's actually been there, been through those feelings of despair, hopelessness, worthlessness, feeling all those negative emotions that nobody likes to feel, dealing with trauma, abuse, addictions, any kind of difficult situation that is not, something that most people deal with. And there's so many people out there who need my help. I have to finish this book so I could help them. My book actually was written because I had written about my suicide experience, my suicide attempt, and I found over 500 people a day were reading that blog post about my true story. And I thought, holy shit, 500 people every day. Like, there's this many people out there that are feeling this horrible. Oh my God. I was just in shock. And I thought, I have to help them further than offering just I put in this blog post, my whole story and some tips about what to do when you're feeling that way. But I thought, oh my God, like I could write so much more. There's just so much more that I could do to help these people. And it was probably one of my toughest years in terms of writing something because it did keep bringing me back to the past. But in the same way, it also made me realize like what strategies and techniques I need to share with people so that they can overcome it. It was like I had to relive it all in order to figure out how to best serve people who were feeling that way. So, yeah, it was really difficult. But by sharing my thoughts and feelings and experiences as they were happening with my friends on Facebook and, like my fans and followers, because like everything on my Facebook is set to public. So everybody can see everything. Everybody told me, like, keep going, keep thinking about why you started. They were really looking forward to seeing the finished product, and they just, they gave me the support and the encouragement that I needed. And of course, they sympathize with me, and they're like, well, I'm sorry you went through all that, and I'm sorry that you have to relive it again. And it was just, the outpouring of love that I received from everybody was just really amazing. So that's what I did when I was feeling that way. I just basically talked to other people. I put it out there saying, this is how I'm feeling, this is what's going on. And they just responded in such a positive, loving way that it just motivated me to keep going. And then there was, of course, there were people who said, Lorraine, I really need your book. I really want you to finish it because it's something I need and I really want to read it. And I was like, okay. So I wasn't writing it just for like some general random person. It's like, you know what? I'm writing it for this person. I'm writing it for this person. I'm writing it for that person. Like I actually know their names. Like I know who I'm writing it for. It just made it all the more real to me that like I have to do this. Like I was called to do it because I never set out to write that particular book. Like it was never on my list of things to do or anything like that. There's other books that I want to write that I've actually started writing that have nothing to do with this sort of topic. And it was like I was called to help people because I realized there were so many people out there that needed it.
This was, I think, another step to your healing.
It really was. It was so therapeutic. And then, after I wrote the book, of course, I wanted to promote it. And so I started doing podcasts. And so that's what I've been doing like the last 3 years now. I've been appearing on different podcasts, sharing my story in the hopes that it's going to help someone over, get out of their situation. If they're in like an abusive relationship or, something like that, or something that will empower them to move on and take control of their lives, whether it's through whatever means possible. There's so many, we all have so many different situations in our lives, and we've all faced so many different obstacles, and some of us are still overcoming them and need a helping hand. So I'm here to empower other people to take those steps to get out of what they're in and to make their lives better. That's why I feel that everything bad that happened to me, it happened to me for this particular reason. Like you always think, why me? Why did that happen to me? Why me? And now I realize, because I question, why was I raped? Like, why me? Why did that happen to me? Like, especially after I saw all the devastating after effects of it. It's like, I believe everything happens for a reason, but I couldn't figure out what the reason was for that until years later now, and I think, okay, the reason that happened is because I can now share my experience with other people and help other people with their lives get out of their situations and improve their lives. They can lead a life they actually want to live. So that's why I think everything happened to me.
Amazing. Tell me, Lorraine, when you write, what's your process to your writing? Does it come spontaneously, or do you actually schedule certain hours of the day where you sit and write?
Oh no, I don't schedule my writing at all. I write when I'm inspired. That's just me, though. A lot of writers do have a set time. Either they write when their kids are at school, or they write at night when they're, after they're asleep, or they get up early in the morning and write before their kids wake up. I mean, assuming you have kids. Now, for me, I write when I feel the need to write. If I'm struggling with something emotionally, I definitely will write. My process for writing is I just start writing. I just write. When it comes to writing a book, that's a little bit different. With my book From Note to Hope, I actually had to sit down and plan out each chapter and what I was going to say in each chapter. And then I had to make sure that, the whole book was organized and followed, a coherent progression of thoughts and strategies, from beginning to end. So there was a lot involved in that process. But it basically began with brainstorming the ideas. And this is what I tell everybody who wants to write a book to do. Brainstorm the ideas that you want to share. Just write everything all out, like a mind map or a bubble. Like put your main idea in the middle, and then make little branches all coming out. And then all of those points, like just brainstorm everything. Once you have all of those, list them in, like say you have 10 things. Make your list of 10 things that you want to talk about and organize them, like most important or to least important, or from what you do first to what you do last. Organize them in some kind of a way. And then once you have those, say your 10 points of what you want to discuss, those become your 10 chapters. And that's your sort of starting point for writing. Now, once you've gotten a lot of things written, yes, the organization might change a little bit. And yes, you'll find that, you want to include more things here and, less things there. So you just play with it. You just keep doing it. And that's where a writing coach often comes in handy. That's where editors come in handy, because they can help you organize things in a more coherent manner. But yeah, the writing process, it's basically the same but different for everybody. I mean, everybody writes when it suits them, but the actual process for writing and then rewriting is basically the same. You get your first draft written. Once you make the outline, you have the brainstorming session, you make the outline, you write the all your points down for your chapters, and then you actually write the meat of the chapter. Then you revise it. Once it's all written, you go through the first draft, then you go through the second draft, then maybe a third, give it to your friends for feedback, get some input from others. You revise things according to their feedback, make your third draft, maybe get some more feedback depending on if people are still willing to help you. Once you have it, you have your whatever it is written to the best of your ability. At that point is when you say, okay, you know what? I'm going to send it to an editor to make it perfect. And then you just go through the publication process of putting it out there on Amazon or wherever you happen to. If you're self-publishing, that's what you would do. If you're going through a traditional publisher, then they have their own editors, they have their own everything. So, but yeah, the whole process of writing is basically, it follows those sort of steps. And that's, I
Yeah.
think, sort of similar for everybody. For me, because I'm an editor, when I write, I have the problem sometimes of editing while I write,
Yeah, that's what I wanted
which,
to ask you.
yeah, and it honestly, it drives me crazy because the perfectionist in me can't stand to make mistakes, even if it's like a little typo. Like, how when you're writing something in Word and if you misspell the word the, if you go like TEH instead of THE, it'll come up with that little red squiggle line at the bottom.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
you're
I
stuck
can't,
there.
I can't continue on. If I see a red squiggle, I've got to go back and fix it like immediately. It's just, oh my God, it's horrible. But that's just, I mean, that's me. I'm such a perfectionist that my perfectionism actually stands in the way of me getting things done because I'd be on like a train of thought, and instead of writing what I was finishing my sentence that I was going to write, I got to go back and fix that little mistake. And then it's like, oh shit, how was I going to
Yeah.
word that the next, and so it really messes with me. Like it really
Mhm.
messes with me. And I've learned ways around this. So what I do now is there's a few different things. I'll either dictate using speech to text software what I want to write, often using my phone, like through the Google Docs app, because you can have Google Docs on your phone as well as your computer. So that's one of the things that I have done. Another is that I don't look at the screen. I'll either cover the screen with like a sheet of paper and I'll just write, and then I'll go back and edit it later. Sometimes I'll close my eyes so that I can just like visualize what I'm writing and write it. So there's like different strategies that I have learned to do to avoid letting my perfectionism get the better of me, because I know that the writing process is one thing and the editing process is another. So I'm able to actually, once I finish writing, I can go back and I can say, okay, you know what? Now let's read through this. Oh God, I made a mistake here. Oh yeah, okay. So fix, fix, fix. And then boom, it's done. So that's one of the things, because like those little red squiggles, oh my God, they drive me crazy. It is funny in a sense, but it's really, it's really not, because it does hold me back from letting my creativity come through and letting my writing
Mm.
just come out of me. So, and I know I'm not the only one that people have faced that problem. I'm not the
Oh,
only
I'm
one. There's a
I'm with you
lot of
there.
people out
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Okay. Coming back to your short stories now. I mean, the topics that you mentioned were like death and pretty heavy stuff. I wanted to ask you, in those stories that you wrote while you were still at university, did you figure in them, or did your life, what was happening in your life, figure in them? And how do you manage to keep your creativity still intact, even though the topics that you're mentioning are quite heavy and down, really?
Well, I actually wrote most of my short stories as part of a creative writing class that I took when I was finishing my high school credits. So in my book, there's 5 stories. So 4 of the short stories are completely fictional, and the last one's a true story. So the first story was completely fictional, had nothing to do with me, my life, or anything. The second story, okay, so I'm just going to read the blurb from the back of the book. The first story, The Secrets of the Study, is about a girl who enters her father's study to get some blank paper for her printer, but instead finds documents that reveal she's a doctor. And to compound things, her father catches her in the act. And then, of course, they have a confrontation. She discovers she's adopted. None of this actually happened to me. I'm not adopted. I don't have a father who has a study. But this is something that I imagined happening, and I imagined like what would happen in that situation. And there's a whole tale all about why it turns out the father knew who the parents were, agreed to adopt the child and raise her as her own, blah, blah, blah. But the second story, Pamela in the Park, is about a teenage girl who is out past her curfew, who's supposed to meet a temperamental drug dealer in the park to give him back some drugs she was holding for him. He doesn't show up, but a policeman does. So then there's the whole issue of why does she have these drugs? Whose drugs are they? Who's going to be charged? Blah, blah, blah. That has a little bit of truth behind it because there was this park when I was a teenager where I actually used to go by and smoke drugs. The police they never got involved at that point, but they did get involved in a different situation I was in. So there was I think every fiction story has a little bit of reality in there somewhere, even though it's completely fiction. It's based on some kind of reality that happened. And that was certainly the case when in the third story, which is about sexual abuse, The Day Adam Saw Red, Adam, a victim, gives a speech to his class about this topic and then goes outside to sit under an oak tree to ponder his dire situation because his speech was actually a masked cry for help. So he was being abused at home and didn't know he was so young, he didn't know how to tell that to other people. So he ended up writing about it in a speech for how in school you have to give speeches for your English
Yeah.
class,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So then this custodian sees him outside by the tree, and he starts talking to him. The custodian is actually thought to be kind of creepy initially, but he actually takes time to talk to Adam to help him solve his problem. And this story was sort of based on one of my friends I had who lived with his mother and stepfather, and his stepfather abused him every time his stepmother went out. And then
It's awful.
when he told his mother, like years later, what had happened, she didn't believe him. Yeah, so this whole story is sort of based on my experience, like my friend's experiences, what he relayed to me about what happened to him. But again, it's not entirely, that wasn't what happened to my friend. It's just certain things that happened. So, and I think that's true for any fiction writer who writes fiction. It's always some kind of reality that they're basing it on, because they say write what you know. Well,
Mm.
what do you at that point, what do I know about? I knew about my experience as a teenager, my experiences with my friend being raped, my experiences of death and friendship and everything else. And in the final story, it's called My Best Friend. So a young girl finds out that her grandma's dog died, and she thinks of Snoopy as her own and is devastated. And that was actually true when I was like 12 years old, and my grandparents lived next door to me, and they had this little dog named Snoopy. Every time my grandparents went on a trip, I was the one who took care of Snoopy, fed her, changed her papers in the basement where she did her business, took
Mhm.
her out for walks and things like that. I saw her every single day because, I mean, they lived right next door to us. And so every single day, I went and I played with Snoopy and I petted her and everything else. And then one day I came home and she wasn't around. And I was like, where's Snoopy? Like what's going on? And my grandmother told me that Snoopy died, and my grandfather had taken her and buried her somewhere on the property. And I was like, wow, that was my first experience sort of with death of someone I loved, even though it was a dog. Like, we all know that our pets are like family. So it was, she was what I thought of my best friend at the time. And it was really hard for me to deal with that. That's a completely true story. And it's difficult to write about things that are so, I guess, just really tough to deal with. When it comes to death, death is a subject that none of us really know how to handle. We hear of somebody that dies. Oh, we say, so sorry for your loss. And it's like words don't exist
Mm-hmm.
to express how we feel. We all have a difficult time expressing ourselves. We have a difficult time coping with death. Other things too. I mean, sexual abuse, any kind of abuse, really. We're put in these situations, and we don't know how to cope with them. We don't know how to deal with them. We don't know how to express ourselves. And so that's why we turn to creative outlets to help us with that. For me, it happens to be writing. For other people, it might be singing, it might be painting, it might be, some other form of art where we express our creativity or our thoughts or our feelings. I know for me, I enjoy painting. I'm not good at it, but I enjoy the process of it. And for a lot of people, they might think that with their writing. They might think, oh, I'm not a good writer, but yet I like writing because it helps me. It's therapeutic. Sculpting, people will take things and make a sculpture because it's a way for them to express that part of themselves, creatively, that they can't express any other way.
Mm. But
So,
when you're writing about these things, these painful emotions and things like that, how do you manage to pen it down, get all your emotions on paper, yet stay detached, that it doesn't affect you, to the point that you can't write anymore?
well, I think about why I'm writing and what my purpose is, because, like, say I'm writing a blog post. What's my purpose? My purpose is to sympathize with my reader because they're probably experiencing the same thing, and then to offer advice, to educate, and then to offer some kind of a solution. So, depending on what it is that you're writing, that's what a lot of people, that's especially what I tell a lot of people who want to write a book. I tell them why, think about your why. Why do you want to write your book? What is your purpose for writing your book? Like, do you want to entertain people? Are you a comedian? Do you just want to like entertain people and give them some entertainment value? Do you want to educate them? Do you want to teach them something? Do you want to just share your story and empower others? Like, what is your reason for writing? And I find that once we have our reason, we can actually look at it from a different point of view and become a little bit detached and look at it objectively. Now, in the actual writing process, it's hard to be that way while you're writing. You just have to write it and get it out. And then afterwards, when you go through the editing phase, when you sort of look at it from the objective point of view, you kind of look at it in a clinical way, sort of. Does every sentence start with a capital? Does every sentence have some kind of punctuation, period, exclamation point, question mark, whatever? Are the commas in the right spots? Are the dialogue does it have quotations around it? And you just kind of like look at it that way, make sure it's all cohesive in paragraphs, proper
Mm.
sentences, everything else. And read it once it's all completely edited. Read it and feel the impact. Does it make the impact that you want? Do you feel that it makes the impact? while you're reading it? Are you touched? Do tears come to your eyes? Does it have that, that little punch in the right spot that makes you stop and go, wow, or like, oh my God, like, does
Mm.
it have that effect? And that's why I think beta readers and getting feedback from other people is so important, because you might think as your writer, like, what you're writing, the effect that you want to have. And when you read it, you're like, yeah, okay, I get this. But it's, of course you're going to get it because it's you. But what about 10 other people? Are
Mm.
those 10 other people going to get the same effect? So that's why it's important always to share your writing with someone else and get feedback from a few sources so that you can improve your writing and make sure that that impact is there.
Now, I also know you offer different services on Wording Well. But my question was, let's say I've just written something. I have these documents in my hand and I come to you. Tell us about your process to helping a new writer or author who wants to get their work published. So where do you figure and how does your services help them?
Okay, so I offer editing services and I also offer writing services. Those are the two main ones. But I don't do a lot of writing for other people now. Mostly I do editing and I help other people improve their words. And the people that come to me want to become authors generally. So I help them through the whole process of becoming an author as well through my author assistant services. And I actually recently just put out a video, an infographic, and an article that talks about the steps, how to become a published author on Amazon. So that is a resource now that anybody can look at and see all of the steps involved and in which order they need to be taken. Most people need help along the way, and that's where I come in. I will help them with their editing process. I will help them write the description for their book, the book that appears on like the back of your book. We
The
call it the
blurb,
book
yeah.
the blurb.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that can also double as the description that's used on the Amazon page as well. I'll help them with formatting. I will help them. Well, I won't personally help them, but I'll assist helping them with my cover designer to create a cover for the book. There's a couple of steps that people have to do on their own, like they have to create their own KDP account. They have to go through the process of hooking up their bank account, filling out their tax information, all
Hmm.
that stuff. But I will help them with other different aspects like uploading the files and fixing any spacing issues that come up during the conversion process. So any formatting issues that arise, I will fix. And then, once all that's done, basically it's just a matter of clicking publish my book and waiting for KDP to review and approve your files, which is usually done within like 12 to 24 hours. So it's not even a long waiting game. It happens, yeah, it all can happen very, very quickly. So yeah, that's what I do. I mean, the process is very easy. The post that I published is called How to Become a Self-Published Author on Amazon/KDP. And it's on my website. It's also listed on my services page on my author assistant services page. There's a link to that as well. So
And what about book marketing then?
So book marketing is all up to the author. I actually will do some promotional services on Facebook and in my blog posts of different authors that I've worked with. I'll mention their book, I'll mention, what it's about, or I'll include an image. I've made videos of me receiving autographed copies from my authors that I've worked with. They'll send me autographed copy of the book. And so I'll make a video of either me opening the book or of me like showing the book, because I really love autographed copies of books. And and I think it's just a great way for me to be able to do that as a little bonus for the authors that I've worked with, just promote them a little bit on social media, put some videos up on YouTube, write a blog post about it, include them sort of everywhere. But for actual book launches and things like that, like that's all up to the author to organize and arrange. And there's other places online that will help you do that. It takes a team to put together and organize all of that.
Okay. And let's come back to your writing then. What's your next work in progress? Are you working on your next book?
Yes, I actually put in 5 hours the other night working on.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm working on a poetry series. I've written so many different poems, and I've been to different poetry events at the library, and I've shared so many of my poems. I thought, for someone who helps other people publish books, how come I don't have my own poems published in a book yet? It would be nice when I went to these events if I could just pull out my book and read from my book. That way I
Mm.
could, I have all my poems in one spot, and I could promote my book and maybe make some more sales and stuff like that. So I'm working on, I thought it was just going to be one book of poems, but I have so many that I'm going to have to
Mm.
make it into a series. And then there's some ideas. Not, they're more than ideas because I've actually started the books. One's called Letters to Julian. That's my son, because I've been
Mm.
writing letters to him basically ever since he was born. And I thought, I should put all these letters together in one book and publish them. So I started that, but it's not really a priority yet. And then there's another idea that I've had, and I've got the outline made for a fiction book. I don't want to talk about that yet. But it's a fiction book, a fiction story that I thought would be really cool to share. And it's just sort of in the back of my mind. And I got the idea for it probably about 8 or 9 years ago. I decided to participate in every November, they have what's called National Novel Writing Month,
Mhm.
NaNoWriMo. You might have heard of
Mhm.
it. So I thought, okay, what could I write about? I got an idea. So I started creating this idea, and I realized, like, oh, there's so much more I need to do before I can actually continue writing. Like, I need to know all of these different aspects. So that was my first attempt at a novel, and it was a really eye-opening process for me. But it allowed me at least that month to flesh out all my ideas and sort of plot the whole story out. So I've got all that done. It's just a matter now of writing the book.
Oh, so
So
you're working on multiple things at the same time. That's amazing.
yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's like oh, and then I also want to, this is one of my desires, is I want to put an autobiographical series out there about my life. Like, because I've talked about it so much and there's snippets here and there, but there's so much more that that I haven't shared with people. So I thought, I should put this all together, like in either one book or in a series of books, which I might actually. I got an idea recently from one of my clients that I'm working with, because he's written a book. It's got four major parts to it. And what he's going to do is he's going to release each part as its own ebook. And then at the end, he's going to put all parts together and release that as a print book. So I had never thought about releasing different sections as ebooks and then putting it all together in one print book. So that was a really cool idea. So I think I might do that with a book, one final print book about my life, which is actually a series, like release it as a series of ebooks, depending on how long each is. So I'm still in the process of writing that too and toying around with different ideas with it. So yeah, there's a lot of, different things that I want to do before I die. And so that's one of the things that has sort of kept me going. People have bucket lists, right, about what they want to achieve in life or what they want to
Mhm.
do before they die. And so these are just personal goals of mine that I would like to do while I'm still here so that when I'm gone, I'll be remembered and hopefully, somebody will actually read what I've written.
Your legacy.
Exactly.
So you're driven, and I'm sure you're going to get there. But you don't have, how should I say this? You're not going to have enough hours in the day to complete all of that. So you've got to get pushing.
I know. And, I always think like, Oh, I'll have time when I'm retired. And it's like, wait a minute, you
Oh,
know what? I'm already like 48 years old. Like, how much
yeah.
closer do I need to be to achieve these? But then I also have business goals that I'm working on as well. Like, I'm putting
Oh,
together my
wow.
very first course, and it's going to teach people how to do what I do, how to become a freelance editor. And then another one is how to become an author assistant, because there's so much involved in doing what I do that I have to turn clients away because I can't fit them into my schedule. Like if they want
Mm,
their book edited within the next couple of months, it's like, well, sorry, you know what? I'm booked up for the next few months. I can't do it
mm,
in the time that you want. So you either have to find another editor or you have to wait if you want me
mm,
to do it. And I realized like I don't have a huge network of editors that I can send these people to. So I'm starting to create that network now. I recently connected with one fairly good editor. I'm hoping to connect with more. And then I'm also hoping to, once I create my course, to teach people how to do what I do, how to build a business and do
mm,
this, full time, I'll connect with more people who are highly skilled as well. And then that way, when clients come to me, I can say, you know what? I'm sorry, I can't take your project on, but I can recommend these half a dozen people or however many there happen to be. Because there's also different people have different skills in different areas, or they'll
mm,
accept only projects in certain areas. Like for me, I will not edit a science fiction novel. There's just
mhm,
no way because I'm not interested in sci-fi. I don't watch any sci-fi shows. I've never, that's just not something that I have a personal interest in. So it doesn't matter if you really want me or not. I'm going to refuse you completely because I don't edit sci fi. I have no interest
mm,
in sci fi. Whereas if you want something mystery or self help or, like other things that I am actually interested in, I will definitely help you because you know what? I like it, I'm interested in it, and I have experience in reading, watching shows, and doing editing in all of those things. So,
mm,
of course, I'd be a much better fit. We would be a much better fit together. And that's why there's so many other people that are needed in this area and why more editors are needed and why I think it would be a great idea for me to teach other people how to do what I do because there's not enough of us out there. And a lot of business owners now are realizing that having a book out there can help their business. And I actually just finished doing a whole article on why becoming an author can help your business and
mm.
how to become one easily. And I featured four of my entrepreneurial friends in that article as well, complete with pictures of them holding their books and testimonials of how it's helped their business by becoming an author.
What would your advice be to aspiring writers? How can they increase their creativity levels? How can they stay on it? How do they confront obstacles, writing block?
I have tons of articles on my website that address different problems. So, for example, writer's block is something that a lot of people face. On my resource kit page on Wording Well, there's a lot of different things that are available. Like the links are like it's easy to find. So under the writing category, there's how to develop a great writing and blogging process. There's writer's block and the 10 best ways to overcome it. There's 20 ways to be a master writer and improve your writing skills. There's 17 of the best websites to bring back your writing inspiration, 8 writing tools to keep you motivated to write, some fun writing tools to get you in the writing mood. The list goes on and on and on. So there's all of these different resources that are available for free that are out there. My advice for writers who want to become authors is just to keep writing and keep believing and know that you can do it. Just do it. Be like Nike, just do it.
Yeah, true. So, Lorraine, it was such an amazing conversation with you. I really enjoyed it. My last question would be, how can our listeners contact you and find your books, your work?
Wording Well is one of my websites. It's my business website. I also have another site called lorrainereguly.com. But email and Facebook are my two preferred methods of communication, simply because I'm always checking my email and I have Messenger on my phone. So I'm easily accessible.
So, Lorraine, thank you for being on the Three Pillars. It was very informative. I'd like to have you back because I'll be doing another third series on self help. And I think all that you've been through and all your books and everything are going to be an amazing resource to share on that show as well.
I would love to come back and talk about self-help stuff because
Yeah.
I'm very much in the self-help industry now, not just because of my book, but because all of us are works in progress. There's always something that we can do to improve ourselves.
Lorraine, you've been such an inspiration. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chriselda. Happy that I was able to come on your show. Thank you so much for
Oh,
having me.
it's been my pleasure, Lorraine. Thank you so much. And we'll speak soon, yeah?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Bye, Lorraine.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on The Three Pillars. See you next week and make it awesome.